Imagine carrying a longing so heavy it presses on your heart every single day. That was Hannah's story. She wanted something so natural, so deeply human to be a mother. But year after year, she remained childless. And in her culture, that wasn't just disappointment, it was shame. Other women around her had children. Some even mocked her pain. Even her husband, though he cared for her, didn't fully understand the weight she carried. Hannah's arms were empty, and so was her heart. One year, when her family went up to the temple to worship, Hannah couldn't hold it in anymore. She slipped away from the crowd, tears streaming down her face. And there, before God's presence, she let it all out. She prayed like someone who had nothing left to give. Her lips moved, but her voice was almost silent, just whispers of raw desperation. She begged God for a child. And in her brokenness, she made a promise. Lord, if you give me a son, I'll give him back to you. He will be yours. It was a prayer from the depths of her soul, the kind you can't polish or rehearse. Just raw, messy, honest. There was a priest nearby, a man named Eli. At first, he misunderstood her. He thought she was drunk. That's how deep her anguish looked from the outside. But when Hannah explained, Eli paused, and he said something simple but powerful. Go in peace, and may God grant you what you've asked of him. And something shifted. Hannah walked away, not with a baby in her arms, but with peace in her heart, because she knew she had been heard by God himself. Time passed, and God answered Hannah's prayer. She gave birth to a son, Samuel. And true to her word, when he was old enough, she brought him back to serve in the temple. Can you imagine the mix of emotions? Holding the child she had prayed and wept for, and then letting him go, trusting God's plan. It was an act of surrender, but also faith. Samuel grew up to be one of the greatest prophets in Israel's history, a man who would anoint kings, a man whose life began with the prayers of a desperate mother. Hannah's story reminds us that God hears prayers whispered through tears. Even when others don't understand, even when our pain feels invisible, sometimes the answer comes quickly, sometimes slowly. Sometimes it looks different than we expect. But Hannah's life shows us that God is listening, and he can turn sorrow into a song. In fact, after her son was born, Hannah prayed again. But this time, her prayer wasn't filled with grief, it was filled with joy. She praised God, saying, "My heart rejoices in the Lord." Her tears had turned into testimony. So maybe today, you're carrying something heavy, something you've prayed about over and over. Remember, Hannah, God isn't ignoring you. He sees, he hears. And in his time, he can bring beauty from your brokenness. This was the story of Hannah, the woman who prayed through tears and was heard. If this story encouraged you, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode in our series of powerful women of the Bible.